Hi everyone, my name is Simi and I would like to show you how to make a netted beaded tube. You can make this into a necklace or a bracelet or even an earring. You can make a 3 bead, a 4, 5 or even a 6 bead tube, and that just means that the thickness of the tube increases. For this tutorial I'll be making a 5 bead tube. The technique for making the tubes are all the same, the difference is just how many beads you start with. The materials you will need to make 3 inches of 5 bead tube are 6mm check fire polished beads, 70 of these. The colors that I have used are the Montana and the crystal orange luster. 4 grams of 15O Toho seed beads, and the color that I have used is the silver lined ruby, and 1 gram of 11O Toho seed beads, and the color I have used is silver lined light topaz. You also need needles in size 12 or 13. I usually prefer big eye needles, and for the thread it's wildfire or fireline. I also suggest a lot of patience as this is a very repetitive beading process. For the 3 bead tube you start with 1 11O and 1 6mm 3 times. For the 4 bead tube, you start with 1 11O and 1 6mm 4 times. And for the 5 bead tube, you guessed it, you start with 1 11O and 1 6mm 5 times. Obviously, if you want to make a 6 bead tube, it will be just 1 11O and 1 6mm 6 times. Once you've added the correct amount of beads to your thread, you pull the beads down, leaving a tail of about 3 to 4 inches on your thread. Then you run your needle through the beads in the order you put them in first to make a circle. Tie a knot twice. Do not make the circle of beads too tight, otherwise you'll have problems when trying to sew through them. The bead should have wiggle room. Now sew through the 6mm closest to the knot and then the 11O after. Pull the thread a bit so that the knot goes into the 6mm. Before we carry on, I must warn you, do not cut off the tail of the thread until you have finished, and you will see why later on. Now it becomes a little bit interesting. You either pick up 4 15O beads, 1 11O bead and 4 15O beads, or you pick up 5 15O beads, 1 11O bead and 5 15O beads. Let me explain. Here you can see 2 beaded tubes. The one on the left, which is a necklace, was made using the 414 method. That's picking up 4 15O beads, 1 11O bead and 4 15O beads. The one on the right, which is a bracelet, was made using the 515 method, and that's picking up 5 15O beads, 1 11O bead and 5 15O beads. As you can see, the one on the left bends less and is more rigid, and the one on the right bends more and looks fuller, so you can decide which you prefer. As I was making a necklace, I wanted it to be more rigid and I wanted the bracelet to be more flexible. Here you can see the tubes close up and side by side, and you can see the differences a bit more. With the tube on the left using the 414 method, sometimes you do get gaps in between the beads, whereas the tube on the right using the 51 method, you can see is fuller. Here you can see this tube has a 515 method, and you can see it's quite a lot more flexible. That there is the necklace tube, and you can see that's definitely more rigid. It's not as fluid as the other one. The other tube you can see there is the 4 bead tube. That also doesn't bend as much, so this is basically how you decide which look you prefer. One thing I will definitely advise is that if you're making a 3 bead tube, you use the 515 method, as the 414 method creates far too many gaps in between the beads and they will be definitely more noticeable. Once you have decided on the look you want, in my case the 414, you skip a 6mm bead and sew through the next 11O bead. Then you repeat this process 5 times, each time skipping a 6mm bead and sewing into the next 11O bead. On the 5th time, you sew through 1 11O bead, 4 or 5 15O beads, depending on what your choice was, and then 1 11O bead. Next, you pick up a 6mm and sew through the next 11O above a 6mm. Again, you repeat this 5 times around the tube and pull your thread tight. And now you have 2 layers of beads. So guess what happens next? You repeat the process again. So you just keep going till you get the desired length you want for your project. Then at some point you might run out of thread, and I'll show you how to add some more thread. So when I'm running out of thread, I normally stop after I've sewn a row of 6mm and I have about 5 to 6 inches of thread left. By this point I should be coming out of an 11O bead. Next, I will sew back through the tube by going through the next 6mm, 1 11O, 1 set of 15Os and 1 11O. Next, you remove the old thread from the needle and add the new length of thread. With the new thread, sew through the 6mm next to where the old thread is exiting and the 11O after that. Be careful not to pull your thread all the way through. You want to leave a tail of about 3 inches. At this point, you want to sew the new thread through the tube a little as shown in the diagram. With your new thread coming out of the 11O, sew downwards through a set of 15Os, 1 11O, 1 6mm, through 1 11O, then upwards through 1 set of 15Os, 1 11O, 1 6mm, 1 11O, and finally upwards again through 1 set of 15Os and 1 11O. Now you have the new thread sewn through the beads. If you pull on either end, it should still move, but it will have some resistance, which should help you when tying the tails into a knot. Now when tying the knot, it helps if you have something thin like a knitting needle or a crochet needle to put in between the tails before you tie them, because you don't want to tie the knot too close to the 11O bead so that you can pull the knot into the 6mm bead to hide it. If I were using a fireline thread, I would normally double tie the knot, but considering I'm using a wildfire thread, I would triple tie the knot to make sure that it's secure. Before I cut the tails off, I will add some more beads onto the tube because I don't want to be able to pull the thread back through. One thing about this tube is that it's very pretty and you don't have to use the check fire polish beads. You can also use pearls, bicones or glass beads. Just be mindful that check glass beads would normally be heavier than Swarovskis, so that's something that you need to keep in mind when choosing a clasp or closure. Here you can see that I'm adding a final row of beads before I clean up the tails. I've already added 2 lots of 5 15Os, 1 11O and 5 15Os. This time I was making the bracelet. So I'm picking up another 5 15Os, 1 11O and 5 15Os, skipping a 6mm and sewing through the next 11O. And again, 5, 1 and 5. Skipping a 6mm and sewing through the next 11O. And one final time, 5, 1, 5, skip a 6mm and sew into 1 11O, 5 15Os and 1 11O. And then I pick up a 6mm and and sew into the next 11 above a 6mm. And again. And again. And again. And one final time. When you've added about 5 to 6 rows, you thread the tails on a needle and sew them in the opposite direction to where the knot is, which is the 11/0 and the 6mm. Now, if you're using fireline thread, which tends to be thinner than wildfire, then you can continue to sew the tails further into the tube. But I'm using wildfire, and as you can see, I can only sew them through one by one, which is why I don't bother to sew them further. And I'm happy that the knot is secure, so I will just sew through the 11/0 and the 6mm and cut my thread there. Now, if you remember that tail right at the beginning that I told you not to cut off, the first reason for not cutting this off is if you're making a project that requires a symmetrical design, like this bracelet where the color of the 6mm is half and half. You may realize later on that you need to add more beads of one color to the other end, and that tail will be good for securing a new length of thread. The second reason is for adding thread for when you need to close the tube, which I will be showing you next. As you can see, to cut the tails, I'm tugging on them to cut them as close to 6mm as possible, which is why I wanted to sew on some more beads onto the tube before I cut the tails. Just be careful not to cut the thread sewn into the beads. Once you have the desired length of tube, the next thing to do is closing the tube. Closing the tube is almost like adding a row of 6mm, but instead of picking up a 6mm bead, you pick up an 11/0 bead. You sew through the next 11/0 above the 6mm and repeat round until you're back where you started. Then you pass your needle through all 10 11/0 beads again and pull tight. Now, if you want to leave your project like this, that's fine. You can sew your thread back through the tube using the diagram shown. Otherwise, if you want to add a clasp or toggle, here's how to do so. So here I have my toggle bar and I've closed my tube. Next, you pick up 10 15/0 beads. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then sew into the toggle handle, if we can call it that, or the clasp handle. And then you sew through the 5th 11/0 bead from where the thread is coming out of. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you're doing a 3-bead tube, this will be the 3rd 11/0 bead from where your thread is coming out of, and with a 4 bead tube it will be the fourth 11/0 bead from where your thread's coming out, and so on and so forth. The gist of it is that you want to make this loop centered. Next, you sew your thread into the tube by going down one row, and this is to reduce the tension of the clasp or toggle on the tube's closure. So now you sew through one 11/0 bead, down one set of 15/0 beads, through one 11/0 bead, back up one set of 15/0 beads, and then through two 11/0 beads. Now you skip one 11/0 bead and sew through the 10 15/0 bead loop. So when we come out at this end, instead of sewing in the direction that we did when we came out the first time, we will be sewing through the same 11/0 bead but in the opposite direction, that is through the other end, and again we'll go down the tube and back up. So now that's through one 11/0 bead, down one set of 15/0 beads, through one 11/0 bead, back up one set of 15/0 beads, and through two 11/0 beads. Now, unlike the last time, you go through one more 11/0 bead and then through the 15/0 loop. As you can see now, it is getting a bit difficult to pull the thread through the 15/0 beads, so that is the last time going through the loop. Next, you sew through the 11/0 beneath the loop and the 11/0 after that. Toggle feels secure, and all that is left to do is sew the thread back into the tube as much as you can, and this diagram helps. With your thread coming out of an 11/0 bead, you go down one set of 15/0 beads, through one 11/0 bead, down one set of 15/0 beads, through one 11/0 bead, across one 6mm, through one 11/0, up one set of 15/0s, through one 11/0 bead, across one 6mm, through one 11/0, and down one set of 15/0s, one 11/0, and down one set of 15/0s and one 11/0. And basically just repeat this about 2 more times. Again, for the other end, you just add a new length of thread to the tail that was there before. You will need about 2/3 of a meter of thread for closing and attaching a toggle or clasp, and you should have your final result. Thanks for watching this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.